Hi, Sue Wilson. I have a lovely fire and ice card to share with you today, and I have made a really nice flower using this background die, so I thought it would be nice to show. With the items we'll be using for today's video, I have the mini shadowed sentiment, just because. I'm going to seat that on the pierced flags, which is from our frames and tags. And the Abigail, which is also from the frames and tags, will create a really pretty frame, and we use that. And this is going to be the background we're using from our background collection is the Celtic squares. Okay. I'm also going to be using some summer Meadow Gilding flakes and some ice snow, and that's part of the fire and ice technique. So I've done a little bit ahead of time in an effort to sort of help speed it along. I have gone ahead and cut the Celtic squares background, and I've put a sticky adhesive sheet on the front of it. Now, I went ahead and trimmed it to size, which is one of the things that I do usually later, but I thought this will actually help speed it along a little bit, and I think you can still get the idea. So that is actually been put onto the front. So this is the reverse side of the die cut, okay? So your sticky adhesive sheet is showing through that. I'm just going to bring in a piece of copy paper and pop that underneath just to help keep it a little bit tidier. I've got our Summer Meadow Gilding Flakes, and these are really lovely. So what I'm going to do is pop those down, just put a few bits that I may need more, that may be too much. It's always kind of hard to judge it. I use a piece of Rubit Scrubit pad, and I'm going to just sort of move these around so they grab all of that exposed adhesive. And what you'll see is absolutely lovely areas of different colors that come through. We're going to put a little bit more in here. There we go. And it just will move all that product around. I'm going to grab just a tiny bit more, put that there and down in this corner. And we're going to pop that right into all of that exposed adhesive. Move it around. So you get what I call like the gilding flake dust come through, which is from sort of moving it around with the Rubit Scrubit. But all of that can certainly be used. Okay. And remember, we're working from the back of the die. So that will all show up when we get it done from the front. Okay, so now I'm going to do what I call refine it, make sure there's all sorts of little bits. There's a tiny bit I think we need to pop right into there. There we go. Move all the extra off. There's a little bit I would put right into here. Let's see if I can move some into there. There we go. You don't want any sticky areas. Okay. So now, take all the extra bit off. There we go. And I'm going to clean that just a little bit more, but let's try and see if we can tidy this back up into our container. There we go. There's just some powdery bits left. Pop that aside. Now the next step is the ice snow. So what we want to do is make sure our work area is really tidy. We don't want any of these flakes around. So I'm going to use a gray emboss, and I'm just going to tidy them all up. And then I come back over to this and just make sure all of my edges are cleaned off. I don't want any of that dust coming around when I remove the other side of the sticky adhesive sheet. Okay. I'm thinking I should be good. Worst case scenario, you can always trim it down a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to pop that pokey tool right under the edge. I'm going to carefully remove that. So now the entire sheet is sticky on the top. So the thing I like to do next is to find my scissors, and we're going to put a couple of pearls into place because I just find it's easier to do it this way than to try to stick it onto the glitter afterwards. There. And just the corners are going to show, so there. And last. So these are 8mm white pearls. Pop that down. Okay. I'm going to bring in the ice snow. I'm going to sprinkle that across it. Just going to burnish that all in. So you've got the fire from your gilding flakes and the ice from your ice snow, hence the name Fire and Ice. A little bit more up here. We can put any extra back into our container. Get it all adhered. And this is a lovely see-through glitter that's quite chunky, so you've got a really beautiful reflection coming from it too. There we go. Let's see. Tidy that all up. That is looking lovely. So let me set that to the side and I'll put this right back into the container. So now I'm going to go ahead and put that onto my base. I've cut a black card base and I'm just going to use a little bit of glue around the edge. I think will work really well for that. And get that out. And I would pop some right in the middle of these center areas, and that'll really hold it down nicely. Okay. Oops. Give me a nice little black mat to set that off. Okay. And I'm going to bring in my base piece, and we'll put that on, and then we'll kind of work up to the focal element from there. I just use a bit of mounting foam on the back to raise it. I've got the same black and white in my base, in my pierced mat. That looks good. And I'll give you a quick overall measurement on the card too. It is 7 1/4 inches square. So I'm going to come back to that. So now I've gone ahead, I've cut the Abigail, and this is the decorative piece, okay? It's absolutely lovely. I've cut a backing that was covered with a sticky adhesive sheet. So we're going to go back to our gilding flakes. I'm going to use them one more time. In fact, I'll tell you what I'll do. Pop that back over there and bring in my pokey tool just to get it lifted. And you can put the base on and work through that, but with all that intricate detail, I think it's just easier to do it this way. Plus you get to see a really, really lovely chunk of this dye when it's done complete in the gilding flake. So I think it's really quite pretty this way. They go very, very flat, so you can glue right on top of it quite easily. Takes a little bit more this way, but sometimes when there's a really detailed dye, you do struggle getting into the little corners. So I personally think this is just a little bit easier, but it is definitely your call. You can do it the other way if you prefer. Or if you're low on gilding flakes, that's a way to conserve some. Pop that on. It's really pretty like that. And I'm just going to move that out of my way for the moment. So you can see just how beautiful that comes out. So I'm going to put that right over the top, and then we're going to cut a frame out of it. So I'm going to use some spray glue. We're going to line that up. It goes that way. Get that nice and straight. A little bit of an edge there. Let's see. Okay, so now I want to cut that into a frame. So I'm going to bring in this center piece here, and we're going to tape it into place with some removable tape. Let me just get it all centered. That's looking good. Oops, come on. There we go. Hold each side down. Bring in my cutting plates. That should have done the trick. And pop my tape off carefully. Let me just get under the edge of it. There we go. Oops. You always want to be very gentle with the tape. It is removable, but you can rip your card if you're not careful. So it's always kind of a slow process. There we go. And there. So now I've got a really nice little frame. So I'll pop that to the side. We're going to add a little bit of mounting foam to the back. Now I've cut a couple of very thin strips here. So we'll start with that and just cut them off. And we just want to raise it up a tiny bit. There we go. In fact, we might even be able to finish it up with just this one. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. That should fit. Okay, so I'm going to bring my base back in. Now remember, that's all got that glitter on that. So what we want to do is remove the backing on the mounting foam, but we do need to add some glue to that. Otherwise, it's just not going to stay very well stuck down. So get that going a little bit. Probably should have used a regular glue. This is the fine tip applicator, so it takes just a little bit longer. You can even let it just sit up and get a tiny bit tacky if you like. Pop that to the side. So now it's kind of a, how do I describe this? It's kind of an asymmetrical sort of square, but it does work quite well. So I'm just going to pop it down and just give it a second to sort of set up right there. I'm going to go over to my pierced flag, and I've got the shadowed sentiment here, so we're going to go ahead and put that together. So I've got the Just Because done in both black and white. So the black's the shadow and the white is the wording. So I'm going to use a little bit of spray adhesive, and we'll get these put together. Pop that one right into place. And it just gives a really pretty little shadow. There we go. And the Because, I'll put a little bit of glue on the back of the white one. Pop that down. And just move it onto its shadow really nicely. There we go. They do move a tiny bit when you have very fine detailed die cuts like this. And then we're going to use some of the glue on the back. There's quite a bit more room here, so it's easier to glue onto. And I want to put this just to the back of the flag, and we'll trim the front of it. That'll fit on there nicely. Give that a second. Get the Just glued. Okay. That will fit like this. We'll get that in nice and close. There we go. I've got a little bit of mounting foam on here. And there again, tiny bit of glue, and we're going to probably trim this off. We'll double check it. We'll pop it right underneath that. That's going to need a little more trimming. Because we've got kind of a corner there, I'm going to do it like that. See if I can pop that under. There we go. Give that a second. You can even do a tiny bit of little curl on the end of the flag. I think that's quite pretty. And what we want to do is seat our flower there. Now, this is part of the background I've cut up, and I've used a bit of the row here. So what you do is just cut these off, and you want four of them. So we're just going to use our scissors and cut them directly between the lines, like this, this, and this. And then what you need to do is just tidy these corners up a little bit so they're just a really nice little point. And do this to 4 of them, okay? Go around, and then you're going to just tip off this little piece here on the edge as well, and this one. Super easy to do, and just give them a nice little corner. So what we're going to do is go into these. I've already cleaned them up and tidied the corners, and put a little bit of glue in the centers of all of them. Okay. We're going to do 2 offset like this. Give that a second. And 2 offset like this. There. And I should have another pearl here. Pop pearl right into the center of one of them. Like that. Okay. Oops. Give it a second to set. And then we're going to offset this pair. So we'll have a petal coming out from each of these directions. About like that. And just give it a second to hold. That should do the job. Bit of glue on the back. And we can seat that right at the end of our flag. And you can even form these up a little bit to give it a little bit more of a flower shape to it. There we go. But it's a lovely way to add a little accent, especially if you're short of a flower die. But there you have it. Isn't that lovely? I think that's so pretty. And that fire and ice technique, it just is always lovely. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget, our YouTube channel has so many more for you.